In 1990, Antheads, It Came from the Desert 2 data discs was released. The version that I have is the double hit pack, let's call it like that, by Pure Jolly. And yeah, Antheads was developed by Cinemaware and it was published by Microsoft. And again, in the United States, the game was also published by Cinemaware. And according to the internet, according to the internet, Antheads was only available through mail order in the United States, so you couldn't buy it in stores. Anywhere else you could buy it in stores, but not in the United States. Okay, yeah, what is Antheads? It Came from the Desert 2 data discs. It's hard to explain or to describe. Some people would say in today's days you would call it DLC, downloadable content. Others would say it is a sequel, and others would say it's more like an expansion pack / mission discs. Actually, yeah, it's not a true sequel, since in order to play Antheads you need also the first game, It Came from the Desert. That's why this is the double hit feature with It Came from the Desert 1 and Antheads. And it's too big to be just a DLC or just an expansion. Now, how does it work? In the end, those data discs, you get 2 data discs. On those data discs there is an installation program. This program copies the 3 discs from the first It Came from the Desert onto 3 blank discs, and during this process old content will be removed from the game and some new content will be put into the game. Very unusual in my opinion. I actually never heard of another game on the Amiga or any other systems that use that kind of method. But anyways, in Antheads, It Came from the Desert 2, the story takes place 5 years after the events of It Came from the Desert 1. You play Brick Nash, an ex-fighter pilot who served in the Korean War, who now works as a truck driver. After he got a call from his kid brother, who is a new recruit in the army, he hijacks an army truck carrying a plutonium bomb trigger. Since the army wants to test a new A-bomb, and this bomb would not only kill his kid brother and his comrades, which are stationed just 1,000 yards away from the test site, the blast would also annihilate the town Lizard Breath, and the only person who can stop this test is Dr. H.G. Wells. But on the way to Lizard Breath, Mr. Nash gets into a car accident in which he gets knocked unconscious. In the end, it was no accident at all. He was actually attacked by giant ants, which were only interested in that precious life-giving plutonium which the Ant Queen needs to build up a colony.
Not once in the 5 years since the defeat of the mutant ants had anyone suspected that there was a second queen thirsting for the destruction of all that is human.
Yes, they are back. Yes, it's up to you again to save the town Lizard Breath. But this time you only have 10 days to find and destroy the nest. Also this time you have to convince the mayor, but not with 4 evidences. Instead you have to find a list of persons who have been converted into ant slaves, who act normal for the most part, but when they get provoked their heads transform into ant heads, like the title of the game already mentions, and they will attack you. So this is one of the new features, that you talk to somebody and all of a sudden they transform and you have to shoot their antennas to save yourself and also the person. Because by shooting off the antennas they become humans again. One other thing is that the list is locked away in a safe and you have to find the safe and the right combination. Previous ant slaves may remember a number of that combination. The combination changes from game to game. Beside those two things and of course a different storyline, not much has changed. The nest is at another location and they play a different movie in the drive-in. And this is something that I really love to find in games. Covered advertising. In It Came From the Desert, the drive-in shows Rocket Ranger, and in Antheads it shows Wings. Both games were also made by Cinemaware. So that's basically Antheads It Came From the Desert 2. It didn't offer much new content, but the story was also interesting, and since it uses the same graphics, sounds and has the same atmosphere as part 1, it is also a cool game in my opinion. In the same year, Cinemaware wanted to release It Came From the Desert for the Sega Genesis. It was developed by New World Computing and published by Electronic Arts, but it was cancelled right before it was finished. You can still find the complete playable prototype online and play it on a Genesis emulator. For a long time you could download the game on cinemaware.com for free, but I don't know if it's still available for download. This time the game is an overhead shooter where you play a teenage pest control worker called Buzz. Armed with a flamethrower, you fight your way through hordes of radioactive ants, including 3 boss fights, in order to save the town Lovelock. The game has an arcadic look, which resembles of other games like Commando or Mercs. In the levels you can find items which you can try to combine to get better weapons. You can also find grenades. Some of the ants carry power-ups with them. There are 4 different kinds. The yellow one replaces your health. The blue one gives you extra time. The green one increases your speed. And the white one makes you invincible for a short time. The game is pretty hard, which was made on purpose since it's a very short game. The sound is okay and the graphics are pretty good, also the controls are fine. So bottom line, a pretty nice shooter in my opinion. In 1991, Cinemaware released It Came From the Desert for the PC-DOS. The game is identical to the Amiga version, but it was converted by a different company called Level 9 Computing. My PC version of It Came From the Desert comes in this Joysoft Classic Collection along with some other cool games. Now, to be honest, the first time I played the PC version, I just thought, what the hell happened? As you might already notice, the thing that shocked me the most was the graphics. The game was made in EGA, which only uses 16 colors out of a color palette of 64 colors. You could also select Tandy graphics, which is basically the same and doesn't make any difference at all. EGA graphics were a standard for PC games in the 80s, but at the end of the 80s and early 90s VGA graphics were introduced and replaced EGA graphics, which started the success of PC games on the computer game market, combined with the release of sound cards like the Adlib or the Creative Labs Sound Blaster. VGA graphics use 265 colors, at least in a resolution of 320 by 240. So for me it feels like the people of level 9 computing didn't put much effort into this game. But who knows, maybe they had to rush the game, or there were some other circumstances which led to release the game the way it is. At least it supports sound cards instead of the PC speaker. But the game has no sound effects. It also has a different soundtrack, which is actually not bad, and also supports the atmosphere of the game pretty good. The last thing that is different in the PC version is that you play the game with the keyboard instead of a joystick, which felt a little unusual at first, but in the end also worked out alright. In my opinion, I would still say that the PC version is a good game. Not as good as the Amiga version because of the missing sound effects and the weaker graphics, but the gameplay is the same, the story is the same, and also the PC version is entertaining. And even with the different soundtrack, it has a great atmosphere, so I would still recommend it. And now we come to the last game of this review. It came from the desert for the Turbografx CD. The game was developed by Cinemaware and published by NEC. It was released in 1992 and it is a very early full motion video game, so there are a lot of cutscenes with digitized actors. And Cinemaware decided to use all kinds of elements from the previous games and put them in a completely different game. I guess it's the best way to describe the Turbografx version. Okay, but now we take a look. You play Buzz Lincoln, a high school senior who drives a Harley and acts like James Dean. Since he's very interested in science, he works for Dr. Horton T. Pangborn, a former director of A-bomb testings and an expert on the effects of radiation, who now runs a small observatory right outside the town Lovelock. This time you have 8 days to stop giant mutant ants before they build an A-bomb and wipe the town Lovelock off the map. The ants are led by their queen, also called the Ant Mind, which has the ability to enslave humans and put them under her control, helping to build the bomb and capture more humans for her slave army. There are 3 main areas in the game: the town Lovelock, a ghost town called Borax, and the road that combines the 2 places. In every of those areas are a couple of buildings that you can and have to visit in order to beat the game and save mankind. There is the sheriff's department, the atomic cafe, your home, Pris's house, which is your girlfriend, the observatory, the drive-in, Lutz ammo annex, and so on. Not like in the first It Came from the Desert, you can't travel anywhere you want. You get a couple of places to choose from per day, and depending on your decisions, the choices change a little bit. Now, like in the first It Came from the Desert, your first task is to collect an evidence that the good old doctor will need in order to convince the Air National Guard of the existence of those creatures. They will then support you with airstrikes in one of the action sequences if you want them to. The best way to get the evidence is by going to the source.
Reactivate my sensor grid! Your old radiation sensor grid? You haven't used that since the A-bomb test. And why borax? That old ghost town gives me the creeps. Well, this place is still Funtown, USA.
Starting at Borax, where you can access the ant tunnels through old mine shafts. In the tunnels, the game changes to side-scrolling jump-and-run shooter, which is one of the action sequences of that game.
The sensor checked out okay. What's that rumbling sound? Whoa!
This sequence contains 3 levels, the mine level, the gas level and the fire level. And every level contains 4 tunnels. At the end of the 4th tunnel you find an elevator that brings you to the next level. While going through the tunnels you get attacked by ants and some kind of zombies, which according to the manual are called Antheads. You have a pistol and grenades to protect yourself, and you will find extra bullets and grenades scattered throughout the tunnels. On top of the screen you see how many bullets and grenades you have left and an ant counter. This counter tells you how many ants you have to eliminate to clear a level. This doesn't mean that you can't proceed to the next level until you destroyed a certain amount of ants. It means when you enter the tunnel the next time in which level you start. Mine level, gas level or fire level. Later on in the game your character can learn a forward flip and a back flip to jump over the enemies, but only if you talk to the right person. At the end of the last fire tunnel is the entrance of the Queen's Chamber, which is protected by a force field. This force field has to be deactivated in order to enter the chamber, which is only possible near the end of the game. To exit the tunnels you can walk all the way back or get caught by an enemy. And that is one of the things that doesn't make any sense at all. Because sometimes you wake up in a prison cell and you have to escape a prison tunnel level, or you're back on the surface, as if the ants would have escorted you to the next exit. Pretty weird, but okay. After you collected the evidence, there are basically 2 tasks that you have to do to slow down the building of the bomb until you found a way to deactivate the force field. Number 1, defending locations, and number 2, save people who are under the control of the Ant Queen.
The casing and Stage 1 development have been completed. You've all performed your tasks well. Antmine will be pleased.
Death to the enemies of the colony!
The workers are here to carry the device to the final detonation chamber.
Every time you come to a location that gets attacked by ants, the game changes to another action sequence that looks almost exactly like in the first It Came From the Dead. But the goal of this sequence is to close all the ant holes and stop the ants from getting above ground without getting captured. Your weapons are grenades and dynamites and airstrikes if you have the support of the National Guard. Ant holes can only be closed with the dynamite. Some of the characters will tell you if a location is under attack, and near the end of the game the doctor shows you a map for a short time that shows you all the locations and which ones are under attack. Throughout the game you meet residents who have become ant droids. When this happens the game changes to the last action sequence.
Living underground in a safe, environmentally controlled lifestyle. Ant World. An adventure in communal living. Why resist the future? Join the Colony Club today.
You're a fool to come here, Lincoln. We have the power of many here tonight. You don't stand a chance. I've stepped on better-looking bugs than you just to hear them snap, crackle, and pop. Power to the colony!
You cannot prevail against the power of many. Prepare for your doom.
A shooting level where you try to save the person by shooting a prescribed number of ants before the person's life force runs out or you run out of bullets. On the bottom right you have the ant counter and on the left you have the person's life force and your remaining bullets.
Thanks, stranger. But it ain't enough. You gotta get the queen and kill her. It's the only way you can stop what's gonna happen. Oh.
Between all the action sequences you watch a lot of dialogue cutscenes, and every now and then you will have a conversation with the Ant Queen herself. With her mind powers, she is able to communicate telepathically with you.
I guess your girlfriend's not here. Hey, hotshot? Maybe she went underground, eh?
Come on, anthole. Let's see what you got, feeler face.
Don't bother dialing 911. The real sheriff is tied up for a while.
Always trying to provoke and tease you. But not only that, she also appears sometimes in Buzz's mind as his perfect fantasy girl and tries to lure him into a trap.
Hi, Buzz. You know I'm irresistible. You want to be with me. And you'll do anything for me, won't you?
Yes. No. You're not real. You're a fantasy somebody ripped out of my head.
But I'm your fantasy, aren't I, Buzz? I'm everything you ever wanted.
Yes, yes. What do you want with me?
Where are your friends? The ones who make you stronger. If you tell me, I'll do anything you want.
No, no!
I can see right inside your mind. They're in Borax, aren't they?
If you are able to deactivate the force field and enter the Queen's chamber, then you have the final boss fight, where you try to kill the Queen by shooting at her only weak spot, while she snaps at you with her jaws, spits poison balls and sends her larvas at you.
This here's more fun than an electric chair with a whoopee cushion! Hey, Lud! Get back in the store and try to keep them out. They're after your dynamite. Sure thing, buddy!
The controls are for the most part okay. Only in the tunnel levels I didn't like the jump mechanics, since it takes a character a good second to jump and he also jumps a very long range. This can result in either jumping right into an enemy or getting caught while he prepares to jump.
Man, those things are bad news. I better hit the road.
I also never used the grenades in the tunnel levels, since he doesn't throw them, instead he puts them on the ground and they explode a few seconds later. Not very useful in my opinion, but they become pretty handy once you make it to the Ant Queen. One thing that I also found a little bit annoying was that you saved a person from being an android, and the next time you meet them they have become an android again, and you have to save them also again. It doesn't happen all the time, but every now and then. About the graphics. In my opinion, both the action sequences and the cutscenes are average. The cutscenes are very pixelated and a lot of the colors are washed out.
I guess I kicked their butts pretty good down there. All right, there's my hog. I'm not sticking around here to see if I missed anybody. I blow in this joint.
But we have to keep in mind that this is an early full-motion video game, and the Turbografx 16 is an 8-bit system with a 16-bit graphic processor. And according to the developers, this was also the reason why they made those tunnel levels, since the first-person shooting sequences from the first It Came From the Desert couldn't be made on that system. Now I don't know if this is true and this was actually the reason that they came up with the idea of those tunnel levels, but I think also the Turbografx 16 could have handled those sequences. Anyways, the music is okay and this game has its own theme song, Sea of Love by Kenneth Melville. All the acting is very cheesy and overall the whole game has a cheesy presentation, which was made on purpose, since this game was meant to be a parody of the 1950s and 60s science fiction horror B-movies than a more serious game. And I guess this is one of the reasons why a lot of people don't like this game at all. Then there are also, of course, many who don't like full-motion video games in general. But I know that there are a couple of people who like this game because in their opinion the game is so bad that it is actually good. Now, to be honest, the first time I played this game I thought, oh my god, what have they done with one of my favorite games? But after I played it a few times, I have to say I like this game more and more. And now I would say it is a fun and nice game, not great or a hidden gem, but funny and very entertaining.
Woo! That was fine. You can count on me, buddy. As long as the ammo holds out, you just take what you need.
Finally, I just wanted to mention two things. Number one, 3 of the actors in this game also appeared in other games. Randy Polk, who played Lut, the owner of Lut's Ammo Annex, also appeared in the CDI games Mystic Midway. We have Rest in Pieces and Phantom Express. Then Musetta Venda, who played the fantasy girl of Buzz Lincoln, also appeared in the CDI game Voyeur. And last but not least, Robert Miano, who played the sheriff, also appeared in the game Phantasmagoria as the great illusionist Zoltan Karno. Now, the second thing that I want to mention is that the game It Came from the Desert and or the movie Them/Formicula was mentioned in other games as kind of a homage. In Space Quest 4 you could find a parody of the box of the original game from It Came from the Desert, but in Space Quest 4 it was called It Came for Dessert. Then in the expansion pack Counter-Strike for the game Command & Conquer Red Alert, you could play the It Came from Red Alert missions where you fight against giant ants. Then of course in Fallout 3 you have a side quest which is called Those in the English version, and in the German version this side quest is called Formicula. And this is one of the 3 ant nests that you can find in this game. Then in Fallout New Vegas and in Fallout 2 there are more giant ants to find and to fight. Okay, but now we're at the end of my review of the It Came from the Desert games. I hope you enjoyed the show. Maybe see you next time. Take care. Bye!
I'm really going to enjoy this game.